Guys, thank you very much for coming out tonight. How are we doing with this venue? Does this one work? Woo! Good news. I heard we already had one table had a request to make sure that we have it exactly at the same place exactly next year. Something along those lines. It's not the Caribbean, it's not Hawaii, but I think we kind of got something going. Folks, would you join me in a brief round of applause for our staff that helped make this event possible? Catherine, Emily, Amanda, Eileen, Brendan, where are you guys at? There's Brendan. We're scattered all about. We got these 3 areas going, so I'm not sure where everyone is tonight, but good news. So I want to keep our comments short tonight. I know we want to focus more on the beach and things, but I have to say a few words about the market and so on to make our compliance people happy. I'm sure you understand. So I really want to celebrate just for a minute what this event really is. You know, it's one thing for us to meet with our advisor at the kitchen table, but it's another thing all together for us to get together with 190 other clients like this. We think this is an important part of the experience of working with us. And so I want to encourage you to talk to each other, network with each other, learn from each other, and enjoy this experience. I know we sometimes question, you're talking with your advisor at the kitchen table, like, wait a minute, do these guys have desks and computers and people and things? So I think this is one way just to share that, yes, we actually do. And interestingly enough, this is only 1/3 of our clients. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just recognize some of the people that belong to this extended family of ours and some of the people that are here. And I know we're kind of in separate areas, so we might not see everyone, but Christine and Diane Lokage, are you anywhere to be found? Christine and Diane. Maybe over yonder. Christine and Diane are the longest running clients we have. They have been here since the beginning, almost 25 years now. And I think that says something to the kind of people that we have here. I'd like to look for Joanne Marcaldi, Patricia Perez, Heather McCarthy. If those folks are around, raise your hand briefly. Those folks are school counselors. And we're grateful that we have the school counselors that can come out and join us. As you probably know, our office was built on working with the schools and helping families understand their college funding options. We're very grateful for the opportunity to do this. We think it's important to provide ethical and responsible financial education, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to serve. Lucia Schubert. Is Lucia Schubert around somewhere? Whoa, out in the back. Lucia Schubert and her firm Daigle Smith & Schubert is our preferred tax partners. And I want to thank Lucia and her guests for joining us tonight. And if tax planning is an important part of your future, and my thoughts are it probably is, we may want to seek out Lucia and her team and talk with them a little bit about some of the things that they do. Dr. Carolyn Sorkin, all the way in the back. There we are. Dr. Sorkin is one of our very special friends. She's a former admissions director at Brown University. How many people would like to have access to an admissions director at a university like Brown? When you were sending your kids to school and thinking about the things that you might want to know in terms of applying for college and negotiating financial aid, well, Dr. Sorkin has since formed her own consulting firm called University Passport out of West Hartford, and she helps families understand and manage exactly that process. So we're very grateful, and our clients are grateful also to have this fantastic resource. And can I get a woot woot for our arrival music DJ, DJ Callisto? Woot woot! That's my son, by the way. He's been doing a fantastic job. He's headed to Penn State next year, we think, and if not that, probably the Air Force Academy. So, yes, sir. Working hard. So, quick market update. How we've been doing? Not so bad. In the tradition of measuring market performance from client dinner to client dinner, last year, you remember we had the G. Fox building, and the Dow was at about 25,000. Today, it's about 27,000, a little bit more than that. I heard we had a new market record today, 27 and some change, so good news. So quick recap, last fall, we had a high of 26.8 and some change on the Dow. That was on October 3rd. That was the high point in the market. And then we had that fall off the cliff in December and into springtime, and we sent a lot of emails out that said, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, everything's going to work itself out. And sure enough, it did, and here we are back again today. Roughly at sea level. The Dow is right about where we last left it at the record high, except plus a little bit. So, record highs again today, that's good. And for many of you, you are moderately aggressive investors, and I know you're wondering what to do next. And I'm going to suggest that we may want to stay that course. Stay the moderately aggressive course. If you can tolerate the volatility and the ups and downs that occur with that, we think that's a pretty decent thing to do. Our goal is to keep pace, maybe outperform a little bit on some of the indexes, and we've actually been doing that pretty well. And one of the things that we think plugs into that is sectors. And we're going to talk a little bit more about sectors in just a second. But that's cool. Where do we think we're probably headed next? Well, we talk with a lot of research partners, guys who help us understand what to do. And we talk to our research partners and say, what do you guys think is going to happen out there? And, they tell us stuff. And right now they say the only thing that matters is a trade deal. We think that if we get a trade deal, there is more upside to this market than you think there is. And if we don't get a trade deal, we're going to be in recession faster than you think we are. And so are we going to get a deal? Yeah, we think we are. Because it's in everybody's best interest to get it done. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the trade partners out there, but we also ask our research people, what about the yield curve? And they say trade. What about interest rates? Trade. What about, Brexit? Trade. So it really is that binary. And we can see that reflected in the market these days. Every time somebody opens their mouth and says something either positive or negative about trade, the market either rises or falls commensurate with what that's going on. It really is that binary. Nothing else really seems to matter, except that it does, but really it doesn't. Some of you mathematicians and technicians out there might know of something called the inverted yield curve. And I'm not going to bore you with the math of what that is. You can go look it up if you want to, but the inverted yield curve we view as a signal. The last 50 times the yield curve inverted, and it happened about 2 or 3 months ago, last 50 times it's happened, we've been in recession within 12 to 18 months. So we think there are some warning flags out there and some things that we might want to be paying attention to. That coupled with a number of other factors leads us to think that there may be some sort of a slowdown or some sort of a recession. It could happen. But one of the interesting things that happens is, the 12 to 18 months after an inverted yield curve are historically some of the strongest performing months in the market. We haven't seen the final phase yet. We call it the euphoria run-up. We haven't seen that yet. And this is where everybody's buying stocks and Uber drivers are giving stock tips. The last example of that was during the dot-com crisis, and I know you and I remember that monster run-up before the dot-com crisis came back down the other side. So we don't think we're there yet. If there is a slowdown, we think it will be short-lived and mild, because on the other side of that, Elon Musk is sending us all to Mars. We're testing flying cars, we're curing cancer, the internet's going to be 100 times faster. What's not to love? But yeah, there are some warning signs. Unemployment came in stronger than expected earlier this week, which really means more people got jobs than they thought they would. That's usually a good sign, right? But the feds look at that and say, my goodness, things are better than we thought. Maybe we don't have to lower interest rates some. Maybe we even need to tighten a little bit. And all of a sudden the market goes, whoa, and earlier this week we had a bit of a fall off. Then I was watching Bloomberg the other night, and there was some guy on Bloomberg says, well, we think there's some room, we could probably loosen up a little bit. All of a sudden the market takes off for 2 more days, and that's what we saw with our record highs for the last couple of days. But wait, unemployment's strong. That's a sign of growth, right? It's a sign of strength? Yeah, it is, but sometimes these things get interpreted backwards. So sectors. Sectors, we think, is where the action is. And sectors are little tiny slices of the economy, like transports, energy, railroads, whatever you want to call it. And we can invest in these little slices of the economy without the noise of having to invest in all of the other stuff. Now, we're still going to do the other stuff. But we think that peppering our portfolios with the right sectors and the right ideas at the right time can help us. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on investments tonight, but inside your bags are some handouts and some fact sheets that you might find interesting and compelling. So let's walk through a couple of the interesting sectors. Science and technology. That's flying cars, rocket ships, going to Mars, faster internet, all those kinds of things has been on fire recently. And we think that there's room for that to continue. Healthcare. Healthcare is a defensive sector. If we do get a slowdown, healthcare is one of the last things that people stop spending money on. And so it's likely to be strong. We're actually winding off of our biotechnology space because we think there's some concern about pharmaceutical and drug pricing pressures from the current administration. So healthcare is a little bit broader. It has long-term care, hospitals, robotic surgery, even gloves and masks and things. We think healthcare is pretty interesting. Cybersecurity is the hot new thing. And frankly, America sucks at cybersecurity. That's a business term, by the way. We go to school to learn that. And we have a long way to go to fix that. There's a lot of opportunity out there and a lot of room for us to develop our cybersecurity frontier, and that's something that we can invest in. 5G is interesting. 5G is cell phone stuff. Our cell phones currently run on what's called fourth generation technology, and that's pretty quick. It's about the speed of what you would get from your Comcast cable connection. But 5G is coming, and 5G is 100 times faster. Imagine the content that could be delivered on a network that runs 100 times faster than the one we have does now. But this is going to require a massive build out of infrastructure. We have to change the towers, the cables, the software, all that stuff. So again, a huge opportunity. We think that the number of nodes, which means the number of points of access on a 5G network, is going to increase dramatically between now and 2025. There are some concerns though. Huawei. Do we know about Huawei? A little bit about Huawei? So most of the 5G equipment is made by Huawei. And there is a concern there that those folks will be able to see every piece of data that flows on that network. So we have some thinking and some concerns, to work through on that. But we think 5G is interesting and it's coming. It's good stuff. What's not to love? Well, I'll tell you what's not to love. I want to ask you a question. What do you think is the biggest risk to America right now? North Korea, Iran, or China? Let me have a show of hands. How many say North Korea, biggest risk to America? Iran, China. That's what I thought. So, we have to agree, and I want to share with you the book that I'm currently reading. I like to read. And the one I'm currently reading is called Destined for War. And the guy who writes this book suggests that it's likely that America and China are destined for war from historical precedents that I won't bore you with. But this book by Graham Allison is fascinating, and it does shed a lot of light on some things. And yes, China is a currency manipulator. And yes, they do dump goods at below market prices just to drive competition out of business. And yes, they do steal our intellectual property. And something has got to be done. Did you know in 2017 the Chinese state passed a law that their citizens and companies are required to conduct espionage for the state, required to do so. In China, R&D, what we call research and development, R&D is RD and T. T stands for theft. It's part of their business plan. So, as Americans, we better get our act together. We talk about, MTV and Kardashians, I don't even know what. But I think there's some other important topics there that we might want to be studying and paying attention to. And as hard as it is to swallow and controversial as it may be, we do believe that this administration is dealing with the China, Iran, North Korea, and international relationship problems for the benefit of our economic future. Let me share with you some fun facts. Over the past decade, China has constructed the world's longest high-speed rail network, 12,000 miles of high-speed rail track that will carry their citizens from city to city at speeds of over 180 miles an hour. During the same time, California struggled to build a single 520-mile rail line from San Francisco to Los Angeles with an estimated cost of $68 billion that was 9 years longer and $35 billion more than originally planned. During the same time that this would have been constructed in California, China had planned to build an additional 16,000 miles of high-speed rail. And in the end, California still can't even get it done. We got to get our act together. China surpassed the United States recently with the most number of billionaires. They have a new billionaire every week. Families in China save 30% of their disposable income on average. What's the average disposable income savings of the average American, do you think? Not this group, I know, but the average American. Quite possibly, zero. Chinese shoppers now account for half of the world's luxury goods sold in 2015. Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Gucci now view China as their primary customers. On the 2015 FISA test, China ranked 6th in mathematics while the US ranked 39th. June of 2013, the world's fastest supercomputer was no longer located in Silicon Valley. It was located in China. China's top supercomputer is 5 times faster than the closest American competitor. We got to get our act together. China is now building a blue water navy. Blue water navy is the kind that goes out and projects world power, not stays in for defense. They just finished building their second aircraft carrier, which I find really interesting because the first aircraft carrier was actually a refurbished aircraft carrier from the Soviet Navy that they purchased. The second one, they built entirely themselves domestically. They figured it out. They have a stealth fighter that looks an awful damn lot like ours. How do you think they got those plans? We got to get our act together. China is building a military not only for defense, but for projecting military power globally. Mr. George Norman, one of my very good friends, is here today. George, would you raise your hand, sir? Mr. Norman is the former Captain George Norman of the United States Navy Ballistic Missile Submarine Commander. It does not get any cooler than that. And I wanted to point out Mr. Norman tonight because he might have an interesting thing or two to say about that big country across the Pacific. And so if you wanted to have a thought or two on this, this might be our resident expert for the night, and I would encourage you to seek him out. So what's my point? What do I think we should do? Yes, there are some issues out there. Yes, there's some things to consider. As far as China, there's got to be smarter people than me out there in the long run that are going to have to figure this out, but this is certainly something we're going to pay attention to. We believe moderately aggressive investors should probably stay the course, if you can tolerate the ride. We think there may be a slowdown. We think it'll be short-lived and mild. For most people, we should probably blow right through it. And I know that's hard advice to follow these days. We wish our investments would go up all the time, and they don't. But they sort of do. Historically, that's what they have done, just not on the time scales that you and I wish they would. Investments, you might notice, seem to move in waves. They bore us to death for a while. They might even go down a bit, and then whammo, we get a big wave one direction or the other. And if we miss that wave, we can miss a lot of the performance coming out the other side. So there's nothing wrong, though, with raising cash or getting into risk-protected investments. One of my friends from Swan Global Investments is here tonight. We love what he does. And I would encourage you to seek out John Dolan. He's in a white shirt with the Swan logo on his sleeve. There's nothing wrong with raising cash or being risk protected, except maybe there is, because the shortest time frame in the world is the time between too early and too late. So we want to be sure not to miss any of those waves. As always, please see your investment advisor. We have a lot of tools in the office that can help us understand some of these trends and what to do and when, but they're not perfect. So if you feel the need to pull back, there are ways we can do that without sacrificing too much upside. My best advice to you tonight, my friends, is to stay close to your advisor. Schedule those strategy and review meetings. Use the online tools that we offer to help you manage your household and your world. And try not to stress about it too much. We think everything is going to be okay. So as always, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for the relationship. And thank you for your continued confidence in what we do. Thank you. Thank you. And now I do believe the drinking lamp is lit. And be sure to see our cigar whisperer, Mr. Brendan Carducci, on the corner over here if you're one of our cigar aficionados. Enjoy the band, Clio Blue. Enjoy the night, the beach, the wonderful night. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, give another round of applause for the DJ. Come on, let's go! Good job. There you go. Keep those guys going. And a huge thank you to Charles for putting all this together. We are so excited to be here. We're going to get this party going. All right.